Are you thinking about moving to Lisbon? Maybe you've seen the sunsets over the Tejo River, heard about the great weather, or you're just ready for a fresh start in Europe's most relaxed capital. Whatever your reason, this video is your full guide to moving to Lisbon.
Hi guys, we are Locke and Shan, and we are two Australians that moved to Lisbon at the end of 2023. So we've been living here for almost a year and a half now. And this video is our collection of all the little nitty-gritty details of life in Lisbon that we've learned, collated into one big resource to help others moving to the city. So in this video, we'll go over things like moving to Portugal, accommodation, neighbourhoods, etc., the Portuguese bureaucracy, with things about finding your community, the Portuguese language and what to expect, and also the cost of living as a realistic expectation for when moving here.
We've created a document that covers a lot more information about what we're talking about today, and it can be found in the link in the description if you want more information.
First topic is obviously moving to Lisbon in the first place. So there's lots of different visas that you'll need. If you're a European citizen, you can obviously come and work and move freely to Portugal. But as anyone from outside of the EU, you'll need a visa. We're not going to touch on visas because it's very specific to different people, but there's visas for remote workers, visas for working holidays, and so many more. So make sure you sort that out before you get here. That visa then just helps you get into the country, and for most people you'll then get an appointment to gain your residency. Once you have a residency, it does take up to 6 months to process, but then you have all rights and freedom to move around Portugal and work within Portugal. So that residency card is gold, and don't lose it. But moving into Portugal, the first thing you'll need is a house or an apartment. So obviously if you're coming from abroad, you probably won't be able to come here and find your own place. So like we did when we first moved here, we had a short-term Airbnb that we stayed in, then moved into more of a short-term apartment just for a few months to get our bearings of the city, discover which neighborhoods we liked, and then actually apply for a legitimate lease. So we'd recommend that to anyone moving here. Start with short-term, and so you can actually use the real estate websites like Idealista to look and view apartments around the place and really get a feeling for what they're like here, because a lot of the apartments are quite small and pokey. The season that you move here can affect the sort of apartment that you're looking for, because a lot of these apartments aren't very well insulated or they don't have air conditioning. So during the seasons, it's very different, and also different suburbs around the city have a different lifestyle and a different price. Making sure that you are protecting yourself from scams as far as finding a lease, trying to go through all of the legitimate housing websites or real estate to find a legitimate lease with a person. So a lot of places around Lisbon, they just want to do a little bit of a under the table sort of, you pay me money, you stay in my apartment. But especially for expats or anyone that needs documents or visa, you really need to get an actual contract. And it also saves you when you're trying to leave your place that you are getting your deposits back. So things to think of there. There's a lot of like Facebook pages that can sublease their places, which is great short term, but if you need something more legit, think about that. More information in our document, like Lockie said. Our recommendations for neighbourhoods, and we're going to just speak specifically about Lisbon because that's where we live and where we moved to. So we describe Lisbon as kind of a city that's full of these small little villages. So each neighbourhood in Lisbon has its own villagey vibe, and it's like a city that's just a bunch of little villages all pushed together. So each neighbourhood has their own little main street and their own feeling, which we find really amazing, which means there's a lot of variety for different types of people. So different areas, there's the eastern side of the city, which is more the historic side, and there's these two neighbourhoods called Alfama and Graça. They are like the oldest part of Lisbon. So with that comes the small streets, the old buildings, the very cute and cozy sort of vibe. So Alfama has got that really historic and artsy sort of vibe, lots of local old Portuguese, but then it comes with a lack of transport and you can't really get cars around there, and just little things that it's more of a touristic spot full of Airbnbs. Graça, a little bit more trendy, a little bit more of an art scene, more up on a hill. So it's a little bit more connected to the city, still with that old vibe. Then we come to the other side of the city, so just 30-minute walk away. There's a neighborhood called Principal Real, São Bento and Santos. And this is more of like the trendy neighbourhood, a little bit more expensive. It's where the Parliament building is with a lot of the embassies, big strips of shopping that is a little bit more pricey, but it has that feeling like there's a little bit more wealth in this area. The streets are a lot more calm and quiet and beautiful. We personally like this side of the city for living just because it has that more calm neighbourhood feeling rather than it being super touristic. But then there's a lot of expats, there's a lot of locals as well, but there's more of a feeling of that safety. And then we have more of like I'd say the family neighbourhoods. So Campo de Ourique is a neighbourhood that's very well connected with transport. It's kind of up in the northwestern corner of the main city, and it's a lot of retirees, a lot of young families are living there because it's like this little grid community where it's got some nice parks and it's all very nice little, really well kept little community. And then there's areas like Costa de Caparica or Cascais, which are more of the areas that are near the beach. So one is across the river, Costa de Caparica, and then Cascais is out along the train line, which give you that coastal Portuguese vibe that is still very connected to the city. A little bit more space, a little bit more of a different experience.
One of the things we love most about Portugal is how livable it is. But if you're thinking about moving here, there's one thing that's not always easy: finding a place to live.
That's actually why we wanted to tell you about OLA ESTATE. They help expats find long-term rentals or buy properties in Portugal. And we think what they're doing is genuinely helpful.
When you're new, it's hard to know where to start. Which areas fit your lifestyle? Is the rent fair? What's in the contract? And let's be honest, not everyone speaks English, so things can get a little complicated. They know the market inside and out, help you find the right area and apartment, check the apartment with you, and they handle negotiation, contracts, and paperwork. They're not just agents, they really support you through the first big step of settling in.
So if you're planning a move to Portugal, definitely check them out. A consultation is free and it will most likely save you a lot of headaches down the road.
Alright, let's talk about one thing that everyone seems to talk about as an expat in Portugal, which is bureaucracy. It's a process, and I mean that quite literally. What you'll need early on: number one, you'll need a NIF, which is your tax file number in Portugal. This will help you with renting and banking. Number two, you'll need to open up a Portuguese bank account, and that's quite difficult to do from abroad unless you go through a website that we used, which was border.com, and they organize your tax file number and your bank account. Super easy. So number three is you want to buy yourself a Portuguese SIM card, and the three most popular are Vodafone, Mio, and NOS. Once you get here, you can sort that out and shop around. So number four is healthcare registration. Portugal has great public healthcare, which has longer wait times, so just to bear in mind. But many expats use private insurance.
So whether you're applying for a visa, getting a NIF, opening your bank account, signing up for health insurance, anything that deals with the Portuguese bureaucracy, expect there to be a lot of patience and a lot of waiting. That's just how the system works here. Our biggest tip: have all of your paperwork printed out, especially if you're going into the IMA office, the immigration office, to have all of your documents. It is quite difficult to find the information and exact amounts of paper that you'll need for whether it's residency or even things like electricity bills and stuff. Just have everything printed out as much as you can. Bring your folder, have some free time, and just sit through the process. Things that would be great to bring with you when you move here is extra copies of your passport, proofs of your income, whether you own businesses, all of those really legal documents, especially like driver's licenses, passports. Having extra copies of those just in case you might need them, or you have to give them over to the immigration officers as well. So our top bureaucracy tips would be: try to book an appointment if you can, over the phone, by email. Just try to get an appointment, because lining up to talk to someone in person sometimes will not work. So try an appointment. Bring printed copies, like I said, not just digital versions of things. It's a bit more old-fashioned, so printed copies go along a lot further. Don't expect quick email replies. Sometimes you can't even get through on the phone, so just have that in mind. It's not just you, it's everyone dealing with the same thing. Also, link up to a few of the expat sort of Facebook groups, and you can really use that as a resource, either to find information or just to understand that you're not alone in this and have a bit more support with fellow expats going through similar things. Be polite, even if it gets frustrating. We've noticed with our appointments, yes, the people that work there, they're obviously dealing with a lot of the same thing every day. So it can be a little bit of frustration between the workers, and a lot of people getting frustrated over immigration issues. So you really have to go in with a clear peace of mind and just try to be really patient and polite with your person that's working for you. So obviously this can feel quite frustrating if you're used to efficient systems from your home country. But the key is to slow down and be patient and be polite. The bureaucracy is slow, but it does move eventually.
Lisbon is still more affordable than most European capitals, but the prices are rising. Blogs will have you believe it's a lot cheaper than it is, especially in Lisbon and Porto. The average monthly expenses in Lisbon for one person. So rent, one bedroom in the city centre will cost you anywhere between €1,000 and €1,500. Utilities and internet, you can expect to pay anywhere between 100 and 150 euros per month. Groceries can cost you anywhere between 2 to 300 euros. Eating out, an average meal can be around 10 to 15 euros. Public transport pass is 40 euros. Health insurance, private, is 40 to 100 euros. So this total would be anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 euros per month, minimum in Lisbon. If you live in a smaller city like Braga or Évora, you can cut that down by a few hundred euros. But in Lisbon or the Algarve, costs are going up fast. Here's the part that most people overlook. So the average Portuguese salary is anywhere between 1,100 and 1,300 after tax per month. That's not a lot, especially considering the rising rents. This means that many locals here in Portugal are struggling with the cost of living. So if you're coming with a foreign income, this means that you will be in a completely different position to them. So that's one reason why expat gentrification has become a very sensitive topic here in Portugal. Portugal offers a beautiful lifestyle, but it's not a cheap Europe hack. If you're coming here to stretch a small budget, then of course it's possible, but you'll have to compromise. So if you're coming with a remote income, that's great for you, but also bear in mind that this has an impact on the locals and the community around you. You just need to bear in mind, if something's cheap for you, it's not necessarily cheap for someone that's been living here their whole life in Portugal. It's a completely different market, completely different ball game. So just be mindful and don't be naive when talking about money, and making sure you're being respectful and giving back to Portuguese community rather than taking all the time. So I think that's one key point that we really want to cement in stone. Really be aware of your surroundings and be mindful of how other people have to live, and so your cost of living is relative to your wage. So just bear in mind that. Our advice: budget realistically, have some savings behind you as a little safety net for those seasons where there's not much work on or it's super competitive, and also be respectful of the country that you're moving into. That's really all that we have to say on that.
Topic number 4 is about Portuguese language. So yes, it is definitely possible to get around Portugal by speaking English, especially if you're only traveling here, you will be fine, especially just going from the cities. The level of English spoken by Portuguese people is very high, and we were very impressed when we moved here how exceptional their language is. But obviously learning Portuguese, especially if you're moving here, will go a long way. It's proven to be more of a difficult language than we thought to learn, just because what it looks like written compared to what it sounds like is quite different, and Portuguese people do speak very fast. But obviously, trying as much as possible, Portuguese people really appreciate it and really welcome you to try. A main common mistake that most people find moving to Portugal is that if you start learning Portuguese, a lot of people start with Brazilian Portuguese, and I think this is because Duolingo is Brazilian Portuguese, not European Portuguese. And being new to, I guess, Portuguese language, you probably don't know much of the difference between the two. We definitely didn't. And there is quite a difference, one between the accent and also quite a lot of words, or the tense of how they use words is quite different between the languages. Obviously, knowing any Portuguese is better than not knowing any Portuguese at all. So even if you're learning Brazilian Portuguese, you'll be able to get by. But it's something to think about if you're starting to do any courses. Make sure it's European Portuguese, not Brazilian Portuguese. In saying that, you will meet a lot of Brazilian people here working in the cafes and the hospitality, and then that means that you are obviously exposed to Brazilian Portuguese as well. So you'll hear things like bom dia instead of bom dia for good morning. And it's just nice to have in your head, if you already know that coming in, that that's Brazilian Portuguese, and whether you're trying to learn that or the European tense. Fortunately, all around Portugal, especially in the big cities, there is a lot of really useful Portuguese learning resources. So there is public schools that offer Portuguese courses for discounted rates, like full-time courses. There's obviously lots of schools, but there's even just like little meetup groups as well that's about speaking Portuguese. You might see a lot of little posters on the wall of just locals trying to teach people, because they are very passionate about getting the community involved. We started with the grocery store interactions because it's a very simple sort of dialogue you need for the grocery store. Do you need a bag? What's your NIF number? Thank you. And also ordering our coffees. That's where we started, and then just getting that repetition of that vocab really helped with us to be able to then, oh, now we can order food, now we can order a drink, now we can do like a little bit more complex sentences. In our resource that we've linked in the description with everything that we're talking about all put into one document, we have a lot of different tips of different resources to use to learn Portuguese, and also all of the most common phrases and interactive conversation you'll need for kind of A1 and A2 level Portuguese, which is just the basic conversation. So if you can get a head start on this before you get here, when you start hearing it in the local community, you'll catch on a lot faster.
So number 5 is finding your community in Portugal. Lisbon life is really relaxed. People take their time on lunch breaks. They really enjoy the little things. I feel like Portuguese people have learnt to slow down in such a fast-paced world, and they really enjoy like the morning coffee with their friends and like a social kind of lunch. And they usually go through about an hour, and then people will go to the miradores, which is like the viewpoints of Lisbon, and they'll usually have a drink in the afternoon to watch the sunset, which is really cool. So finding community in Portugal, this is something that Shannon and I struggled with at the start of moving to Portugal. I think that the best advice that we could give you is join as many clubs as possible. Join a run club, try find a paddle club, or link up with people that you feel like you would be best suited to. Throughout us both working here, we've met a lot of cool people just through work. So the more you kind of spend outside and like going to the coffee shops, making friends with people, making friends with your local barista, you never know what kind of conversation or where that's going to land. Not only with expats, but Portuguese as well. So the more people you know, like the bigger your world gets, right? So it's a lot more fun that way.
Coming into our last section of this video is common culture shocks that you might have when moving to Portugal. So the first one is about the slower pace of life. This is something that does take a while to get used to, but then after a while you actually really appreciate, I think, the slower pace. But certain things that you might be used to being really efficient and really proactive are kind of the opposite, and you can't fight it, you just have to go with the flow. We noticed even things like really long lunch breaks. Obviously, some of the local businesses close during lunchtime for an hour or 2 hours to have lunch. Lunch isn't just a quick meal, quick half an hour break, it's usually like a good few hours, which respect, I feel like.
They have a lot of breaks here, and I feel like they really take the time to chill out. Yeah, they really chill out. It's good. And lots of bank holidays, there's lots of public holidays, which is cool. So the Portuguese definitely know how to vacay and relax.
And with that saying, obviously that does make things a little bit slower when you're wanting appointments or wanting, I don't know, things to happen really efficiently. You kind of have to lower your standards about things aren't going to be early. It's actually anything 15 minutes late is still considered on time. That's something that took me a while to get used to, because we're very like, you have to be 5 minutes early to be on time.
So if you're booking in a medical appointment, this can take a little longer than expected. A few friends of ours have had to wait, weeks, if not a month, to get seen by a doctor. So
also a little thing like, which I actually really appreciate, like even the service is a slower pace than what most people, I guess, might be used to. Like when you're going to order at a restaurant or at a cafe, it's very much one person at a time service. It's like they're taking it a bit more slow. It's not like they're rushing just to serve you, which is, some people might get frustrated by that, but it's nice just to wait in line, wait your turn, and then they'll give you the attention.
We love this one cafe. It's called Dramatico. It's up the road from us, and every time we go there, it's run by this really chill guy, but I love the fact that it's just him, and he'll take as long as he needs to with that coffee. He'll chat with you, and there'll be a line out the door, but he's just like, he's not acknowledging them, he's just acknowledging you. And I love that level of service where it's so personal, and it's less about the rush and it's more about enjoying and slowing down. So I think the Portuguese have it right.
It's, quality time.
Yeah.
Moving on to bureaucracy, obviously we've already talked about this, but this is a culture shock because depending where you're from, bureaucracy runs differently. And in Portugal, this is the most talked about thing amongst expats or people moving. Even locals actually are still talking about it. But yeah, hard to get appointments, hard to find information. You try to talk to people, they send you to different places. They don't really seem to want to help you, or they don't know the answers. And we spent a day here going to all these different offices around Lisbon, and they just kept sending us back to the other office. And then we're like, I don't think anyone knows what's happening here, but we were stressed and sad. So
Yeah, I think mostly we got all of our information from Facebook groups, because that's where, you know, people have had the same problem and they've kind of figured it out over a long period of time. So you can save yourself a lot of time in those Facebook groups. Like,
we got there eventually, obviously.
yeah,
We're here,
we made it. We're still here. That's
just
good.
Going with the flow. Number 3 is about cash culture. It still exists. Cash culture is a big deal here, and because there's a lot of small businesses, cash is really used, and also local Portuguese cards. So sometimes you coming around with like an American Express card or any sort of travel cards, not all places will take them. So definitely good to have cash.
What we've noticed here in Portugal is that things are open a lot later, especially coming from Australia. Everything seems to shut around 7 p.m. and it's like, time for bed. That's it, go to bed. And then here, it's kind of everything's coming alive around 7:30, 8:30, and everything stays open till like 3 in the morning. So it's like, you can go out for dinner super late, and we've found that we've kind of slipped into this European lifestyle where we're waking up a bit later, we're going to bed a bit later, but it's just like the natural progression of moving to another country, and this is like how they live here. It's fun. Like, we like the fact that there's a bit of a after work culture where people get together in every single park.
And with the weather here, especially in summertime, the sun doesn't set until 9 o'clock. So even if you're going for dinner at 8 o'clock at night, which for us back in the day, wow, that's so late. But now that is actually early, I guess, because the sun is still up. So adjusting to those later dinner times, most restaurants don't even open till like 7 or 8 or something, right? And the same goes for breakfast. Don't expect your breakfast or your coffee shops to open sort of before 9 o'clock-ish.
We're used to our 5:30 morning coffee shops.
This might not be a big surprise because this is most of Europe, but the smoking is very common. People don't smoke indoors, but smoking is very common everywhere. And there's obviously, if you're sensitive to smoke, something to think about. But any sort of cafes that have outdoor seating, terraces, gardens, or just in the general public, there is a lot of smoking.
Yeah, when we first got here to Portugal, we had like a short-term stay, and we realized that in this particular house there was an issue with mold. So during the winters, there's like the colder season, you get the rain, but this attracts a lot of mold because there's not a lot of airflow in these apartments. So you'll find that moisture builds up, and you'll see it. You'll visually see the mold on the wall. Hopefully that's not the case for your apartment, but it does happen because they're not really that well insulated, and airflow on ground floor apartments seems to be non-existent. So,
and on that also is the insulation of the apartments. Lisbon is known to be such a warm country, but in the winters you feel so cold because inside the apartments is so cold. And you even hear, I have friends from Sweden and Denmark that say that they're colder in the winter in their apartment here than they are from their home countries, just because there's no insulation, there's no floor heating. A few places have like an AC unit which you can heat, but most people buy their little heaters, and then with that a dehumidifier as well to make sure you're not getting this cold and moldy house. Yeah, we moved to a top floor apartment with windows on all sides, and we find it's a lot more airy, but the winters do get cold. Considering it's not a snowy country or anything, inside you've got your little shoes on, you've got your big jackets while you're inside. So the last one is about quiet on Sundays. A lot of Portuguese businesses are closed on Sundays, and that's like a family religious day. Of course, in the central part of the city where it's most touristic, a lot of the tourism is still open, and it is still very busy on Sundays. There'll still be a lot of cafes and museums and lots of things to do if you're just traveling here. But yeah, a lot of the local businesses or anything outside of the cities will mostly be closed on Sundays.
And like Lockie said before, there's a lot of public holidays as well, like bank days.
Plenty. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to like drop a comment down below. We'll be happy to answer anything that you might be unsure of. But we have made that document, like we said before, of everything comprised into one form where you can kind of cross-check everything that you need to know about moving to Portugal. Literally, we've thought of every single aspect. So feel free to check that out if you're interested. And thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you in our other travel videos. Ciao.
Peace!